This happens universally every time I say this band name in public, at a show or just talking to someone, and the immediate response is always, "Oh my God, I love Candlebox." I've always thought of his voice as powerful, comforting, and challenging. Like, I challenge you to think of it like this. Using the word legend doesn't really fit his vibe because he's just a normal, approachable dude. So it's with a very full heart, and I'm so happy you're here. Gonna say it anyways. Welcome to the Scandalous podcast. Kevin Martin from Candlebox, you absolute legend. How are you doing?
Well, I'm better now that my headphones are working.
I
I'm
know,
good. I'm
yeah.
just relaxing. Yeah, I'm relaxing here in LA. It's a beautiful day and life is good.
Good. Well, you say relax. That sounds retired, but out of the gate, I just want to say I don't actually think you're retiring. You're not actually retiring, are you?
I am. Well, the thing is, like I said, when I started last year saying that I was retiring at the end of the tour, I did mention that if the record was doing well, that I would continue to keep playing as long as the record was doing well. And the record's doing well. So I will retire at the end of this year from touring, from making music and stuff. I mean, listen, when Jerry Cantrell and Gavin from Bush ask you to do a tour with them, you don't really pass up on that. That's one of the things that you
No.
absolutely have to take. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. It's not nearly as long as last year's run, so I'm happy about that. But it is 7 weeks, and hopefully that 7 weeks continues to help the long goodbye as a record continue to move forward.
Yeah. And I remember you talking about like, oh my God, I haven't toured like this since I was in my 20s. So
Yeah,
you'll
yeah.
you'll get it. You'll get a good run out of it. It'll be a
I
good
hope
last
so.
goodbye. Yeah. Well, I guess it's because I love Greek mythology so much, but I saw you play last summer and your salt and pepper hair swaying in the wind reminded me of Zeus. So you look like Zeus to me. So in my mind, I'm always like, oh, that's Zeus. Ha. And there's something about being older, wiser, having more knowledge that reminds me of being really settled and happy in life. So you're really looking forward to just being happy and settled in life right now.
Yeah, I think the main thing is that when I was home for COVID, I really realized how much I had actually missed of my child's growing up and spending time with my wife and as a family. And you know, I think the beauty of being older and wiser is you can take the time to reflect upon it and accept it and understand it for what it is. That's really what we all search for in our lives is that kind of sense of being and belonging and comfort and sometimes quiet and sometimes alone time. But you know, when you're with the people you love, it's just the best feeling in the world. And it's so often we forget that. I think as human beings, we forget that sometimes it's okay to just be in the moment and be with those people that really make you feel good, and really make you feel comfortable with, in your own skin and who you are. And I think that, the 30 years of touring with Candlebox and being in this band and, you know, trying to find my space in that world of rock and roll and what does Candlebox mean to me or to mean to anybody else right now, it's that's not even a concern of mine. It's Candlebox is just just I guess it's just a machine for me to kind of work through the things that emotionally I kind of need to do on my own, and so it's a vessel, if you will, for me to express myself. But it's not something I concern myself with anymore. Candlebox to me is a band that I had an absolute blast doing, and it's been 30 plus years of rock and roll, and but it's not the end all be all. And I think that's where the wiser side of getting older is it's not the most important thing, and the most important thing is your sanity and your comfort and your health. And your family and the things that you love, and I guess maybe if that's what being older, wiser Zeus has brought me. I'm not burning cities up anymore, or flying around on winged horses or anything like that. So, but I still get on that silver torpedo and drive down the road every now and then, and that's what I'm doing this summer.
That's awesome. Yeah, it is kind of funny in our society, and it's this funny thing we've done to ourselves where it's very hard. And I think it's kind of an American thing, but it's very hard to take a break. Like, even when I go visit family, it's very hard to just take a week and not work on anything. or not work on
Yeah.
projects. It's like, God, it's not supposed to be like that. We're not supposed to be like feeling like we should just be okay with ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We should just be like whole and secure and not like, I'm not, I didn't make today a good day unless I like achieve something or went after something. Like you should be able to just take a break every now and then. I think, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, my wife, we like our favorite thing to do on Saturday mornings is just lay in bed and watch really bad TV. And we'll do that sometimes till 12 noon. And, she's like, I feel like we're doing something wrong. I'm like, this is exactly what we're supposed to be doing, is relaxing and being in that moment together and just sharing that time alone without anything else, invading our space. And yeah, that's, I think as a society, we've forgotten that. And we take it for granted too. It's really important that you find some way to reconnect to not only yourself but those people in your life that means something to you, that mean, whether it's everything or a little bit, or you have to find that connection, and you have to take time for it.
Absolutely, for sure. So we are retiring, and I'm glad we are. But I want to say real quick, a great simple example for what Candlebox is, while everyone tries to define it in different ways to celebrate and commemorate, it's just this beautiful gift that you put out in the world, and it exists, and it's an extension of you, and it's just this beautiful thing it's this beautiful ethereal thing that exists out in the world that you put out there. It's like a
Thank you.
simple, happy way to look at it. It's fun. So that being said, I think we habits die hard. I know you're looking forward to retirement. Have you had it happen a few times where you've just been driving and you've had some lyrics pop in your head, or you had a melody pop in your head? They're like, oh, that would be a good song. And you're like, nope, 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 retired. Habits. You're like, oh, that's a good song idea. And it's like, no, 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 retiring.
No, it's funny. I haven't had that for a while. I would say probably close to 4 or 5 years I haven't had that
Oh, wow.
connection. And I think that that's probably why I've realized that it's time for me to put this away. I mean, it just means that music does it. She doesn't mean the same to me as she used to,
Yeah.
and she's not the most important thing, and she's not the second most important thing. I rarely think about my music ever, unless Candlebox pops up on, like today I was playing a playlist in the car and I was driving around, and Cell Phone Jesus came on. I was like, "Look, that's weird. Why is it like I wasn't even playing it? It wasn't even in my iTunes at that point." So and that was just strange for me. I mean, I just don't think about it that way until I get ready to go on the road and when I'm prepared to do a tour or something. That's kind of when it starts to happen. Or like if I'm on stage or if I'm backstage or something, I'm playing with an acoustic. That's when I'm kind of connected. But those days of when I would drive around and hear a melody and pull over and write down lyrics, those are long gone. And I got to be, honest. There's not a lot of music right now that's inspiring, that I'm hearing on the radio. Even like, I've started listening to Sirius XM a little bit more, and I'm kind of getting bored with the fact they're starting to play just hit songs, which is like radio.
Mhm.
I mean, the whole concept of Sirius XM was deep dive and deep cuts. And so now what I do is I put Spotify on, or I put Pandora on, and I'll pick an artist and I will do like a radio station of theirs, but I'll pick only deep cuts. So I can find, something by, a weird band from South America or something like that, which kind of inspires me. It's singing in Spanish and I don't even know the words. But what I'm finding here in the States, and in the radio that I'm listening to, nothing is inspiring me. And that's kind of shocking. And it could just be me. Doesn't mean that it's not good. I got the new Green Day record. I was really excited about it. There's 2 songs on it that I like. I got
Yeah.
the new Blink-182 record, which I was really excited about. There's only one song on it that I'm absolutely crazy about, which is called Blink Wave, which is just cool as hell. Um, but again, that could be just where I'm at as an artist in my life, and as a musician, where I'm just kind of feeling, I'm not interested, and that's okay. I mean, music will find its way back into my soul, but right now I'm just not there.
Yeah. So I'm so glad you brought this up because I've been thinking about this topic a lot the past like couple weeks of people saying, I'm not inspired or I used to feel it and I don't feel it like I do anymore. So I'll send you a couple songs, but I'm excited to tell you. Have you ever heard of Amigo the Devil?
Yes.
Okay, do you like his stuff? And it's fine if you don't.
Uh, it's not something I would go and listen to,
Yeah.
like download it and,
Yeah.
and dig into it. But yeah, I do. I can appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. So I love his song Cocaine and Abel. It's slow and beautiful. So I really love that song. I'm very excited about him.
That's
You
a
love slow.
great
You're a slow
title.
and beautiful kind of guy.
That's a cool title, man.
Oh, Cocaine and Abel.
Yeah, that is
Hey, there
great.
you go. I won him over with a song title, and I never
That's
remember
fucking
song
great.
titles. But that was a good one. Okay, but there's two, and I kind of rebranded my podcast to be a little bit more mainstream in the graphics and the marketing for it because I want to do mainstream artists as well. And I'm really obsessed with folk music right now. I love rock, love metal, but I also love folk and I love country and I love actors too. Cool. But there's two folk artists that will blow your mind, Kiki Rockwell and Paris Paloma. So
Oh, yeah, send them to me.
yeah, they're like, I feel on fire for them right now. And it's just like, it's really rebellious and it's really good writing and it's
That's
really
great.
beautiful. And it's
Have you
like,
heard
it's, mhm.
Have you heard Jeremy Alvino yet?
No, who's that?
Oh, he's great. He's a kid from I think he's from Santa Fe. My buddy took me to see him the other night. I was absolutely blown away. It was one of the greatest. I mean, it's kind of like Marcus Mumford meets Sturgill Simpson, but a little bit more Americana and not so
Cool.
country. It was really great.
Cool. See, we're like, we still like music. We still like it. Like, whatever.
We
I'm
do.
older too. I met you like a long time ago. We're both old now. Like, I'm
Yeah.
old, you're old. We still love music. Anyways, well, I want to touch on real quick before we go through your life and your catalog and everything. But you always say your wife's clothing company, but what is the clothing company?
Natalie Martin Collection.
Fabulous. Great
Yeah.
name. Love it. What's the
Yeah.
Instagram? Is it Natalie Martin Collection?
Yep.
Great. Okay, so that's the Instagram. We're gonna go all check it out. And you're helping design some men's items for the line as well.
Yep.
And you love whiskey, so you're coming out with your own bourbon.
I am.
Yay. Okay, I know nothing about whiskey.
You should
Nothing
learn.
about. I just don't like it.
Ah, well, it's an acquired taste.
Yeah,
I mean,
Vegas bombs.
it's only a $12 billion industry, so it's no big deal. But
Oh, it's fine. I'm keeping the vodka industry
yeah,
going.
hey, I'm right there with you. I like that.
Yay, there you go.
Tito's
Okay,
handmade.
I know, Austin, Texas. Perfect. Fabulous. I love it.
It's
Okay, cool.
actually out of
Wanted to
St.
talk.
Louis, and they just call it handmade in Texas because they distill it in Texas one more time.
Oh, do they really?
Yeah, I didn't know. A lot of people don't know that.
No.
Yeah.
Wait, I live in Austin. You mean the billboard down the street is lying to
Yeah.
us?
Well, I mean, it is handmade in Austin because they bring it in and they redistill it in Austin, but it's actually comes out of St. Louis, where the rest of the vodka that's in the United States comes out of.
Me and all my friends are just melting to the floor right now. We're like, what? You mean to tell
It's
me?
good vodka. I like Tito's.
It's great. All vodka, all the figs. Okay, great. Well, before we go through the whole catalog and your life, I want to talk current events. And this is really fun for me. I think the whole point of interviews, yes, it's left up for interpretation, but I love talking about music. I love talking about lyrics, and I've been very introspective. And the lyric gods, the music gods have just been blessing me. I've been opening up your music randomly, and the exact song I needed was the one that played. So going to talk about a couple of my favorites. So current event wise, 2 albums Candlebox fans need to hop on. The Long Goodbye, released in 2023, obviously, and Wolves from 2021. The Long Goodbye is self-explanatory, but I wanted to ask real quick before we get to lyrics, what do you mean by the album title Wolves? Are you the wolf or are you being circled by them?
We've become wolves, I think, as a society. there's a pack mentality and then there's the lone wolf mentality. And I think that the problem with a lot of what's going on in the world, not just the United States, is that sense of injured wolf, hunting, not really sure where they're going to be, what their outcome of life is. And I think that, people are scared, people are angry, people are frustrated. We're seeing terrible, terrible things happen at the border. You have two complete idiots arguing over, who's the better president or has better ideas as should be president. I mean, they're both complete morons, and it's just a sad situation. And wolves is what we've become. We've become a society that, we care about those that are close to us, but, we just don't give a shit about anybody else. And we just want to take and take and take. And that's not what humans are supposed to be. Humanity is a very big term. And I think people have lost sight of that. And so that's where the title came from.
Absolutely. I think it happened. Do you think you've lived life longer than me? Do you think something like really changed during the pandemic in a very real way that wasn't really there before? Because I feel like something broke and there's just this inherent like fear, kind of like what you're talking about. Do you think that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, well, it was bubbling before the pandemic, of course. I mean, certainly when Trump was elected, whether or not people, like him is relevant. I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
But that election process was one of the most confusing things in the world to me. Is that how can a television personality that has no real concept of government be elected into the most important position in the world by a society of people that are supposed to be smarter than that? I grew up with a father who served in World War II. My dad was born in 1922. He was a staunch Republican until Ronald Reagan was elected. And then my dad's like, this is not the Republican Party that I support. And he immediately became a Democrat. And I remember those conversations my dad would have with my mother and friends when I was a young man, about, whether he was talking about Jimmy Carter or some of the leaders of the world, Gorbachev, all this. I mean, my dad had great insight into politics. So I grew up with an understanding of how the system works. And I was just flabbergasted that we as a society could do that. And so I think that the real issue started with Obama. And I think that racism is inherent in this country. It's inherent in the world. And I think that a lot of people were pissed off that a black man got elected in this country, which there should be no issue with that whatsoever. He was a fantastic president. He did 2 terms and he did great things for this country. And I think that's where it started with this downfall and with this anger and this frustration. And whether or not people want to believe it, or accept that white privilege is a huge issue. It is an enormous issue. And again, these are just my opinions. So if you get people that are pissed off that Kevin Martin from Candlebox is talking this way, they can go fuck themselves because it's just my opinion. But that's the problem. Racism is inherent in this country. And that's where it started with this kind of, anger and frustration, which it shouldn't be that way. I mean, as long as we're taking care of one another and the country's in a good position, then let's roll with it and let's take care of one another. We need health care. People need to be taken care of. These people that are arguing about Medicaid, Medicare, and that the government shouldn't be taking care of, people that need health care. Well, who paid for your scooter? That was my tax dollars paid for that scooter. It is a socialist society that we live in. We have socialist medicine. The police, that's socialism. It's a scary term for Americans. And that's what Donald Trump does, is he leads with fear. He makes people afraid of the person next door. Your next door neighbor is stealing from you. He's going to steal from you and I can fix it. That's not how it works. And that's where all of this kind of now what we're struggling with is that mentality, because you see all these idiots that follow him like a cult leader. They have no idea what they're talking about. They have no idea what's being done to them. They have no concept whatsoever. They just think that he's going to save them. He gives zero shits about them. And that's where, yes, during the pandemic, that's where it really got out of control, because he was able to feed that fear. He was able to say, you see, they're lying to you, and you don't need to follow that. And that's not true, because it was a pandemic, and we've seen it before. Now we're seeing a measles outbreak. That Florida's got a measles outbreak. Viruses find ways to manipulate themselves and become fresh again. That's what they do. It has nothing to do with Biden's leadership, Trump's leadership, Obama's leadership, anybody's. It's just what viruses do. They are viruses, and they will find a way of revitalizing themselves to rebirth. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but I know that much. And
no, you're doing
so
great.
yes.
I'm very political, and that's kind of my happiness, is just paying attention to politics and listening to news. And I was like, oh, he's talking so eloquently. What if I'm not as eloquent when I chime in on how eloquently he's talking?
I don't know if I'm eloquent about, what I have to say,
good.
because
it was pretty good.
I mean,
it was good.
I just think that, the problem is that people don't want to educate themselves. No one reads anymore. Nobody wants to read anymore. No one wants to learn anything. They just want to spit shit out of their mouths and say, somebody's fucking me over and I deserve better. And that's not how it is, because hard work is the most important thing that any of us can do to try and better our lives. But there's an entire society that no matter how hard they work, they will never, ever, ever be in a position that someone like you or I am going to be in, because of the color of our skin. And that is a sad state of affairs right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I 100% agree. And it's so sad what's happening in Gaza. You cannot control where you were born. Like, the opportunities that I have as a woman to be who I want to be and to do anything and to start my own business. And I would have been killed 10 times over for being the woman that I am in any other country or a lot of other countries. And you cannot help your race. You cannot help the family you're born into. You cannot help the socioeconomic situation you're born into. So I agree 1,000%. And that's very real. And it's really sad. And besides all of the nuts and bolts of everything that's literally wrong, I think, just to cap it off and just kind of to have an introspective thought about it, I think and I'm not a fan of Donald Trump either. And I think it's really sad. One thing he did to our society is we didn't know we were that depraved, that he could get elected. I think one sad thing that happened to our society is it was this sad moment where you realize how the real world works or something like that. And you have this faith in our country and this pride in our country. And he dampened that, in my opinion. So I think that's, a little sad. I think it was just this oh, we really will accept anything, won't we? If,
Well, and he uses keywords, but then he uses trigger words: patriot, American, and
then loses his train of consciousness and starts talking about something else.
His shoes. I mean, he's hawking shoes now. What? This is absolutely mind-bending that we have somebody like this that people are considering electing again. He did nothing.
And he's doing really well.
That's
what's
terrible.
Great. He's doing really well. He's probably going to win. That's the craziest thing. And we're about to be overloaded with, which we'll go on. We'll make this a music podcast in a second, but we're heading into the real, we're about to get into the real election cycle, and kind of the election's already over. It sucks because he's doing really well. Anyways.
Love the music.
Yeah. Okay. I love songs. So it was this beautiful ethereal thing that I was in a damn mood and I was listening to Candlebox and I just pressed play, shuffled, and I heard Nails on a Chalkboard from
Mm,
The Long Goodbye. It's a masterpiece of a song. Flows
thank you.
like honey, perfect lyrics. So let's revisit the lyrics. And I don't know if I'm like asking you what it means. I just like to bring up lyrics if you want to comment on it or kind of talk about like, oh yeah, well this. But I just want to celebrate these lyrics. Whisper a story inside my ear, like nails on a chalkboard. It cuts so clear. Am I losing my grip? Am I lost in the plot? Rewrite it all because I'm wondering. Was it the Joker? Was it the King? Was it the madman? Or was it me? Easy to see between you and me. It's down to you, lover. It's down to you, lover. And I've got a birthday coming up and I'm getting older and I'm getting introspective. And it's all about kind of taking stock and going, what's going on here? So I really appreciated that song. What does that song mean to you?
Well, there's several stories in that. I think what it is it's the confusion of life, and it's the, you know, it's more metaphorical than it is. It's more metaphorical than it is linear. It's really about if you're absorbing everything that you're listening to in life, if you're allowing the talking heads of CNN or MSNBC or anything like that to infiltrate or allow it to skew your judgment or your position on something, um, that can be very damaging to your soul, and it can be very damaging to your opinions or your view of the world. Like I'm looking out at this gorgeous view of Los Angeles right now because it's been raining here and it's clear and it's stunning and breathtaking and I want to focus on that. And I want to allow that to be in my heart, and I want to allow that to be in my mind as to I'm very fortunate as a human being. And what those lyrics mean is if you allow this to get in there and dig itself, and separate that beautiful vision you have of life, it's gonna hurt, and it's going to damage you in a way that you're not prepared for. And it can also help you. It can also give you great character, or it can help build your character. And that's where that line is. Was it the Joker? Was it the King? Was it the madman? Or was it me? Who is it that's talking to me? Am I allowing myself to free think? Am I allowing myself to think for myself? Am I allowing myself to have my own opinions, my own ideas? Um, and what Down to You Lover is just kind of like, hey man, this is up to you. And I mean that to myself, so and because I'm a lover, that's what I am. I'm a hopeless romantic, and so it just seemed like a good way for me to close that line out. But that song was really inspired by Nine Inch Nails, and where I think the song is we're in it together now. Is that the one? You and me, we're in this together now. I can't remember the name of the song, but or the title of the song rather. But it was inspired by Trent Reznor and his innate ability to just push his finger right through your fucking soul and make you feel something. And I've always loved Nine Inch Nails. I've always admired his writing. And I said to the guys, I was like, I want this song to be called Nails on the Chalkboard. And I want it to represent that feeling of, God, this could be a beautiful moment, but it's just something is scraping, and it's just deterring your vision and what you should be focused on, which is your your safety, your heart, your soul. So yeah, that's kind of where that comes from.
Hey, Kevin, that's how I feel right now in life. Great song.
Thank you.
I was talking about that same thing that you're just talking about with my girlfriend a few hours earlier. So I'm like, I love the ether of life. I
Yeah.
really do. It's this beautiful. Your music is a beautiful gift that you put out in the universe. It's great. I heard this really beautiful song that's kind of talking about the disillusion of life, and I want to highlight that. So I want to read some of the lyrics for that. So it's a song called I Should Be Happy off of The Long Goodbye. And it's talking about everything we were just talking about. So the lyrics, traditional Candlebox songs, Candlebox fans are going to go, for the hits because it feels good. But listen to this. I should be happy, not underwhelmed by being overwhelmed here. I should be happy, not scared or frightened by a lack of fear. And I should be something instead of knowing nothing about every day. And I should be thinking, but I'm overly aware that I ain't awake. 1,000 words of nothing, saying something good for no one, which is great. Saying something good for no one, because even if it's good, who does it matter if no one hears it? Going nowhere down the middle of the road. Isn't that all how we all feel?
Yeah,
Isn't that
I
how
think
we
so.
all feel?
Yeah, and I guess that's the thing about this song is it really is. I've made since the debut album, I've made 7 albums that, well, I should say, I I I've made 5 albums since 2006 that no one listens to, and or the Candlebox 10,000 loyal fans have listened to, and I can go out and I can play Breathe Me In, or I can go out and I can play Turn Your Heart Around or something like that from any of the other albums, and somebody's going to know it in the audience, but most people are like, what song is this? Where's Far Behind and You and Cover Me and Change and Arrow? And it's very hard as a musician to be trapped in one record. When you know that you've made better albums, you've written better songs. I've written better songs than Far Behind. I know that. I mean, I know in my heart I have. And I know that there are fans out there that would agree with me. You know, for example, a song like off of Disappearing Airports, what song am I thinking of? The Bridge. I mean, is a really poignant song about the shortness of life and the steps that people, will take to end that because they see no outlet. But it's a very frustrating thing, and I should be happy. I should be happy. I've had a career. I've had 30 plus years of music. I've made a great living. I'm having a conversation with you about music, and because you care and you want to talk about it. But I think in general, all of us should find some sort of happiness in whatever it is that we're doing with our lives. But that's, again, what we were talking about 15 minutes ago, where people are so disillusioned and feel trapped and they feel broken and they feel scared and they feel, you know, unmotivated. And that's a scary place to be as a human being, because you just want to be able to look out at this view and just go, God, I'm going to pinch myself. I'm so lucky that I have this. But that's a hard thing for some people,
Yeah.
and I find it hard sometimes for me as well to really just look at my life and enjoy it and say, God, I'm a lucky son of a bitch.
Well said. So I really love those lyrics, and I don't know. Do I want to go inside and elaborate on it now? I'll just keep going because there's more. I've got more things to elaborate on down here. So you write really deeply, internally, and poetically. If ignorance is bliss, would you say that you suffer for your deep self-awareness and exploration of your emotions?
Yes, I suffer for that.
Since we rescheduled the podcast since Tuesday,
Yeah.
I should have done different inflection on that. I forgot that question was in there.
Good question.
I should have done way different build up
Yeah.
to that. That was really funny.
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's funny. But you do write really poetically.
Thank
Do
you.
you think that the outlet of being a singer in a band and writing lyrics, does it make it worse? Does it make it better?
I think it makes it better, but I've only ever written about what I've experienced. I've only ever written about my life. When I do other projects, I try to write from, I've got this project with Don Liggs, who produced the record, called Future Trash, which is entirely different than anything I've ever done. And I write from the perspective of other people, which, is not something I've ever been able to do up until the past maybe 10 years, because I was more so connected with, my emotions and the things I'd experienced. And I found it difficult to write from the perspective of another human being. but I've learned over the years that that's not so difficult if you allow yourself the freedom to express that, or the freedom to allow that into your mind and your heart and your soul, and breathe through it. But yeah, I find that, being the lead singer in a rock and roll band, I hate it. I'm the reluctant lead singer, but I've loved every minute of it. And I love writing lyrics, and I love writing with other people. Like on this record, I wrote with 5 other brilliant songwriters that really helped me find um, depth from a different perspective, because I felt that I had said everything that I could say the way I say it. I needed somebody else to help me find those words. That's why Cell Phone Jesus. That's not something I ever would have come up with as a song title. But Ryan, who we wrote that song with, he says, "Man, I got this line that I want to use in a song," and he said it. I was like, "Oh my God, Cell Phone Jesus is a genius fucking song title," and it is, and I will beat anybody up that says it's not. I don't know.
Yeah. That's funny. You're a funny guy. Okay, well, help me finish the playlist. What are more songs? You said there were like 5 albums. It's actually really
Yeah,
funny. You said I've written 5 other albums, right? That nobody
yeah.
listens to. Help me complete the playlist. I mentioned a few, you mentioned another couple, but like list another 4 or 5 songs that like, damn it, if you like
To tell the
Candlebox,
story.
listen to this. Yes,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
mean that's absolutely the bridge from Disappearing in Airports. Uh, Only Because of You from Disappearing in Airports. Criminals on Wolves. Nothing Left to Lose on Wolves. Um, on the new album, Maze, which is entirely about my wife Natalie and our relationship. Um, Off the new record, and then on Into the Sun, there's a song called Kiss Before Dying, which is just a really fucking cool track on that record. And then the song Into the Sun is brilliant. Off of Love Stories and Other Musings, I would say Them Eyes and Turn Your Heart Around, which are just two really, really cool tracks. They're love songs. Um, but they're bluesy. I wrote them actually. I wrote "Turn Your Heart Around" with Chris Daughtry for a record he was releasing years ago, and he didn't use it. So I was just like, "Hey man, do you mind if I use that track?" And he's like, "No, please do." So yeah, that was like an interesting song. But I think that there's, from Into the Sun to The Long Goodbye. God, there's so many stories in those records that people are missing, that could have, Lover Come Back to Me, which is inspired by that stupid Apocalypto movie by Mel Gibson. But my wife was pregnant at the time. And when I wrote that song, I just watched that movie, and I watched that scene where he puts his wife down in that well to protect her from the other tribe that's coming to invade their camp. And, the water's flowing because it's raining. And I'm like, God, Jesus, the emotion there. And she's like, come back to me, come back to me. And I was like, oh, I got to write a song about that. So, I mean, those types of things are, what I think that people are missing from Candlebox. Yes, the debut album is great, and if I do say so myself, I mean, 7 million people loved it, and how many million more are still listening to it, I don't know. But there's so much more to Candlebox. Lucy's a really interesting record. Happy Pills is an album full of fucking darkness and heartbreak, and A Stone's Throw Away is about my ex-wife, Renee, and I were pregnant, and she lost the child to a tubal pregnancy. And I never really realized how much uh, pain that would feel, what I would feel with that. So there's a lot of great stuff besides that debut album that I wish people listened to.
We all will now. All of us. Now we're going to. So we talked current events. Now I want to go back to the past a little bit. And I have to say, you're such a well-dressed man. I can't believe you were ever super into punk music, but apparently you were. Tell us about
Yeah.
life as a skateboard kid in San Antonio and then the move to Seattle.
Well, that was, I mean, that was the greatest, most influential formative years of my life was San Antonio from eighth grade to my middle of my sophomore year. My dad took a job in Seattle and we left San Antonio and moved up there. But, you know, some of the bands that I was going to high school, I went to high school with Trent Schmiederhaus and Michael Kinda in a band called Marching Plague, which was this amazing punk rock band that, you know, just, I was so like, I can't believe I'm going to high school with these fucking guys, you know. But they were amazing and World Bizarre and of course the Hickoids and the Big Boys and Flipper. And I mean, just the Texas punk scene was, and Butthole Surfers. I mean, this shit was all, I was going to see these guys in Austin at Liberty Lunch, you know. I would see them at the Bone Club in San Antonio. And my first concert was Black Flag, Dead Kennedys, and the Butthole Surfers in San Antonio at a place called the SBC Hall. And
Not
then I
bad,
saw
not
Bad
bad.
Brains. No, and I saw Bad Brains in San Antonio. I mean, it was my only regret is I never got to see the Germs. Like that was a band that I really, really wanted to see. And I had, you know, I was lucky enough to have some great friends who turned me on to the DC punk scene. So of course, that was Minor Threat and, you know, and Scream and all that stuff. Which, you know, obviously years later, I got to know Pete Stahl here in Los Angeles and I've known Dave Grohl for, geez, I've known Dave since he came to Seattle to try out for Nirvana. But, you know, that kind of, that scene was everything to me. And I love the Clash. That's my favorite band of all time. And you can still be a well-dressed man and like punk rock. I mean, Malcolm McLaren was, you know, the king of punk rock, and he wore suits everywhere. But yeah, I mean, I do fancy myself, you know, a bit of the punk I mean, we got a song on this record called Punks, you know, so I still believe that firmly.
Yes, but with great style, but with impeccable style.
Thank
One
you.
of the most well-dressed men I know in rock and metal. So you dress
Thank you.
well.
Thank
Great
you.
outfits. Great stage shows.
That's not.
So rather than asking how you and the guys got together, I feel like you've done that 7 million, 5 million times of how you and Candlebox got together. Can you share the first songs that you guys wrote as a band, how you wrote lyrics and music together, and what that was like starting to get better, and specifically like the magic of the early days of figuring it out?
Yeah. I mean, the first day that Barty came to try out for the band, our bass player Perry left the band, and Barty came to try out. He brought the bass line for Far Behind into the studio, and at the time we were rehearsing in Mother Love Bone's own rehearsal studio. So I immediately started thinking about Andy and kind of how much he had influenced me, and those kind of the relationship we had. It was not musical at all. It was, well, besides talking about music, I mean, our relationship was, I worked in a shoe store and he would come in and hang out and get flyers for shows. So that's how it started, just as a friendship. So I just immediately started thinking about him, and it's like, I need to write this song about Andy. So the first lyric was, "Now, Andy, I didn't mean to treat you bad." And I was singing it from the perspective of heroin, the drug of choice for him, which took his life, sadly. And that's, you know, I'm a drug. You chose me, and you know, you might die using me. But and so that was kind of where the lyrical concept of that song came from. And it happened rather quickly. I think that we jammed on that song for about an hour, and I had the first verse, you know, that day. And then the next song we moved on to, Barty's like, "Oh, I got this other bass line," which is the bass line for the song "You." So in the first rehearsal with him, he's not even our bass player. We wrote two of the most poignant and prolific songs in Candlebox's career. And that was kind of how it happened. And everything else after that, like Arrow, Don't You, Change, Cover Me, they all happened really, really fast because we were hungry as a band, and we knew what we wanted, and we knew what we were looking for. And we were just, you know, every piston was firing the way that it's supposed to. And very, very lucky to have written a record that way. And the interesting thing is, like, even when we went in to record the demo, we never rewrote the songs. Like, and we were never the type of band that would work on a song for days and days and days and days and days to get it right. We always felt that if it was getting to where it needed to go, it would just develop itself, and we would let it happen right in front of us. And so that's why even now when I go into the studio, a lot of times I go in without lyrics. I go in there with a melody and maybe one or two lines in my head, and I will let the song uh, open itself up to me and tell me what it wants me to say.
And I've heard you say that before, and that's completely mind blowing to me that that's possible. That's really wild that that's possible,
I'm
that you
lucky.
can flow like that. That's really crazy.
Well, I think Dave Grohl does the same thing. I mean, there's a lot of lyricists out there that do that. I mean, Post Malone, I know that he doesn't spend hours and hours and hours writing his lyrics out. I know that he does a lot of free flow.
Hmm.
He's trying to find that point in here to get up here to come out there. And, I think that that's what, um, you know, most of us do as lyricists. Even if you're sitting with a guitar and you're writing a song, you I, I mean, I don't know how many sit down and write lyrics out and they go, I'm going to force this into this song. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm most certain that there's an instrument in that hand and it's telling that the left hand is telling the right hand what to do, or if you're left-handed, it's telling the left hand what to do. It's not just I got a book full of lyrics, unless you're Jim Morrison or somebody like that, which I don't know how many musicians out there that do that, but I find that the ones that I've met all kind of are stream of conscious lyricists and singers.
Got it. Good to know. And that's something funny you said, just kind of in my mind brought up like a really great description of like the fan to artist relationship when you were talking about like my head, my heart, my brain out through the mouth. And that I think that really is the magic of being a fan, is when you go to a show or when you hear a song for the first time, it's just how did they know? Like, how did the artist know? How did they know what I feel? And I think that's the crazy magic about music, is that you hear a song and it's like, but how did they know it's like that? But how did they know? And I know it just came up for me when you were talking about that, of this wild, cosmic, beautiful thing that happens, artists
Well,
and fans and music like that.
I think it's in our DNA. I mean, I think humanity is not that old, and our DNA all comes from the same place, so
Mhm.
we all have the same emotions. We all have the same experiences. We all have, the same heartbreak, the same love, we all feel that. And I think that the interesting thing is that some people are Candlebox fans. Some people are Three Door Sal's fans. Some people are Alice in Chains fans. Some people are, but we're all kind of saying the same thing. We're just saying it in our way,
Yeah.
as lyricists, as musicians, as bands. I can't listen to, I don't know what you call bands like Bullet for My Valentine, or, I can't listen to that kind of music. It offers me nothing. It doesn't mean it's not good. It just offers me nothing because I come from the world of Otis Redding and Led Zeppelin and the Clash and the Who and I have different. I have a different love, a different perspective of love, and so, but that, like I said, doesn't mean it's not good. It just
Yeah.
it's my ears, and that's what I'm saying is like the beauty of being cut. Our DNA is all the same. It's all the same bars. It's just we all have different chromosomes and characteristics and stuff, but we all have those emotions, and that's why when you go to a show and you hear that song, how do they know? Because I'm you and you are me, and we come from the same simple little molecule. And just you and I tend to have the perspective of we're fans of the same music than maybe someone else would have with someone else.
Yeah.
It's just a strange thing,
Yeah. Very, very well
but
said.
it's
Good
beautiful.
job. Yeah, it's great. Well, I wanted to just laugh about something, and it's kind of something people have been talking about a lot, but let it be known that you guys got zero love from your scene in Seattle because you guys were younger. And kind of starting off, I really don't get any hate now, but I sure did when I was coming up, though. I was sure targeted and harassed and ostracized in a funny way, but I never let it stop me. So I just kind of think it's funny to talk about that you just didn't get love, and everyone, the whole world loved you, but your scene did not. but you stayed on it, and you're still here. And I think there's a great lesson in that.
Well, I think that, I was determined to, to have my footprint in the Seattle music scene and in the rock and roll scene. I was determined with that. I mean, that's from being a young child. My dad was a jazz musician. My mom was an opera singer and standard singer. My sister was a musician. My brother Dennis was a musician. My brother Brian was a musician. Music was always on in my home, and I was determined that I was going to have my footprint somehow planted firmly into the world of rock and roll. So nothing was going to deter me. And regardless of the opinions of the Seattle musicians, I mean, there was enough room for Candlebox. They just didn't want to make it. But I didn't really care. I mean, I'm not cut from that cloth to where my skin is so thin that I can't take a little bit of heat. I will argue with you about it, about if you've got something to say about the band that, our music's shit or something like that. If you want to say it to me to my face and we can discuss it, then I'll argue with you about it. But if you're going to say it behind my back or, then you're just a hater and you're going to hate, and that's the way it is. And everybody's got opinions. I mean, the saying is there's enough, horses' asses in the world. We don't need more horses, but everybody's got opinions, and they're like assholes and we all have them. But, it's really, you can't be deterred, because there is a place for all of us. And I think that what life is about learning who you are. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to hurt people. You're going to do things to yourself that you shouldn't do to yourself. But if you find a love and you're passionate about it and you believe in it and you want to do it, you have to do it. And I tell bands all the time, if you're going to do this, it's the worst job in the world. But if you're going to do it, you have to do it to the full fucking extent of your being, which means 100+% all the time, every single day of your life, until you get to a point where you can step back and say, okay, I've done that and I want to take time away from it. But if you're not doing that, you're not going to see success. You're not going to, I shouldn't say see success. You're not going to see what it is that you want unless you really, really go for it. But the success is getting out there and doing it in the first place. It's just how much further do you want to push it?
I like it. Yeah. Very inspiring over here. I love it. And he would know. So what was it like when the world caught on fire for Candlebox?
It was scary. I mean, I don't think we were ready for it at all.
That's funny.
We were certainly, thrown right to the wolves. I mean, we went out on tour with Living Colour, went out on tour with Rush, went out on tour with Metallica, and we toured Europe with Henry Rollins. I mean, those are really, really hard bands to open for. And the beauty of it was we learned a lesson from every single one of them. And we took that lesson and tried to better ourselves as musicians and as artists and performers every single time. And so that even as scary as it was a great opportunity for each of us to be better musicians, better artists, better human beings, better brothers, better uncles, better cousins, better friends, and respect the gift that was given to us as artists, and to do everything we can with that gift to share it with the world.
Did you feel, and this is something that a lot of artists talk about in interviews, did you feel lonelier after you got more famous really quickly?
Yeah, very, very lonely. And I remember I've told the story before, but we were traveling through Montana. We were in a van. There was 8 of us in a van, and it was like 5 a.m. I woke up and the sun was coming up, and it was just that kind of peaceful moment. And I was listening to Space Boy by Smashing Pumpkins, and I was like, God, I'm fucking lonely. I'm so fucking lonely right now. I just want to go home. Even I'm with my best friends. I'm playing music every night to, audiences that are learning about the band, and I just wanted to go home. I just really, really didn't. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Time to go home. Yeah. But of course I didn't, and then the rest is history.
Yep. And here we are talking. I wanted to ask kind of about that time. I've heard you say in interviews, this is kind of a funny question, but you just don't hear numbers like that anymore. But Candlebox sold like an insane amount of records, like really quickly. Like what were like the crazy numbers of records that you guys were selling? Because I've heard you say it in different interviews, and I was like, what?
Yeah, when we did Woodstock '94, we were moving 170,000 units a week. We were the only
Crazy.
band that, yeah, we were the only band that played Woodstock that was in the Billboard top 10.
Wow.
And nobody cared. We did a press conference and nobody asked a single question. Um, yeah,
I'm so glad I care. I'm glad I can
yeah.
ask about it. Yay.
But yeah, I mean, it was insane. I mean, and you come
Yeah.
home and you go to pull some money out of the, ATM and you're like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
It was shocking. But I'm very lucky. Like I've said before, I pinch myself every single day. I don't know how I got here, but I'm so grateful that I did.
So can you give me like a good Cliff Notes grunge Seattle rock education of stuff I should know that honestly, like, I don't know, I was born in 88. I do the best I can, but I don't know everything. Like, are there some things I should like really know about?
Well, have you read the book Everybody Loves Our Town?
No.
That's a great book.
Okay.
Read Mark Lanigan's book. Read Sing Backwards and Weep. That'll give you a great insight because he was kind of the godfather of the Seattle grunge scene. He was friends with every single band. The guys in the Melvins, Nirvana, like he and Kurt were best friends. He and Lane were best friends. They all knew one another from when he was in high school and he dropped out at the age of 16 and moved to Seattle. Those books will really tell you more than I could ever tell you. But Everybody Loves Our Town is one of the best books written about the Seattle music scene. And also there's a movie called Hype, which came out. I think you can find it on YouTube. That's a really great underground CZ record scene and all that sort of stuff, which deals with like the underground punk scene that was happening in Seattle, and like Eastern Washington and Southern Washington. The band Seaweed is in that movie, and they're one of the first bands to sign to Sub Pop. We took those guys out on the road in '96 and just absolutely had a blast with them. But there's a really great scene in the Gets and of course 7 Year Bitch and a lot of that stuff that a lot of people don't even know about, which they're all discussed in those books. Mark's books are so good, and I mean the God, the last chapter will just bring you to tears. Now that he's passed, and I was a fucking just a beast of a man, but he's an amazing writer, and I love Screaming Trees. They were one of my favorite bands, and all of his solo records are brilliant as well. But I'd say just read those two books. They'll tell you more than I could even begin to tell you.
Good. Thank you. I've been actually wanting to become a reader. Everything's so cell
You
phone these
will
days. I've
you
been
will
like, I
not
want
put
to
those
read a
books
book.
down.
I
You
want
will
to read
not
a
put
book.
those books down, man. They're so good.
Good. I'm glad. That's awesome. So I did have a question. I feel like we already kind of covered it, but I do want to give the opportunity to talk about you. Is you about the pain you feel as an artist, exploiting your pain and kind of sacrificing yourself to connect with people for your art? Because it kind of seems like you run out on stage and you're just like wailing at the crowd, going like, "Oh, I'll cry for you, I'll die for you." Is it like, to me, when I hear that song, it's like so obvious, but is that what it really is? Because to me, it's like, I'll kill myself for you people. Do you
No, it
feel
was
that way?
actually no. It was about when I stopped doing drugs. It was
Oh,
about
okay.
like staying away from that. I was destroying myself, and back the Seattle music scene was destroying itself, but a lot of my friends were destroying. I had lost at that point when I wrote that song. I already lost 5 friends um, to drugs, so it was really about staying off of that, getting away from it, and reminding myself to never go back to that.
Glad I asked. I'm not, I won't be wrong anymore. So good. Your, yay. It's all about learning. Your song, Youth and Revolt, from the Love Stories and Other
Oh,
Musings album from
thank you.
2012. The world is a scary place, and good and evil used to be more black and white. Does it scare you as a father what the world has become? Do you feel jaded by it, or do you still feel the spirit of being a youth and a revolt?
I still feel the spirit of that. I mean, that song was inspired by the riots in Egypt, um, or prior to that record even coming out. So it was really about, the youth in the world, making change, going back to the '60s and demanding that the Vietnam War stops, demanding um, that we stop killing one another, that these governments stop doing these things that are destroying entire societies, wiping out these beautiful souls that are just trying to find their place. And that's what the song is about.
And it's still happening
Get out there and
today.
make a stand. Vote. Get out there and vote.
Yeah. I know. It just reminded me of like what was that? Rock the Vote on MTV. Rock, rock the vote. Haha. Okay, so I have the lyrics here, but I would love to know where the song Understanding came from off of Lucy. And last time I'll read lyrics, I promise, but how people tell you lies. I thought you felt the same. Somehow he thought you'd be there. Help him beat me down again, again. It's all I know. And then there's this long, perfect pause, which, like, I want to know how you came up with that because it's genius. And you do this pause where you think the song is over, and all the musicians, like, you guys all stop playing. And then you go back in, and then you're like, so you want for me some things we never see, left alone to fill time. So empty all your thoughts now. Turn around your hate. Take a look at me. Hang on, security. What's that about?
Well, it's really about kind of what was happening to us. We were getting, beaten up by the media. We were getting beaten up by the music scene in Seattle. There was no love that was happening. And we just really felt disillusioned. We felt broken as a band. And the spiritual conversations we were having as brothers discussing the record really inspired those lyrics. And it's really just about taking a look at yourself. Every now and then you've got to look in the mirror and just you have to ask yourself those questions sometimes, those hard questions, where you have to look in the mirror and you have to say to yourself, I need to change this. Or you know what? I love you. You're a good person. And that's really what it's about. It's like just taking that breath. And that's what that pause is about. It's about taking that breath and allowing yourself to be in that moment, to be who you are and be who you want to be. And not let the media or the haters hate,
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I think it's my favorite pause in a song ever. That's just so well done. I love
Thank
that.
you.
So I wanted to take a second. Obviously, Andrew Wood from Mother Love Bone was really important to you. So tell me about him. Let's honor his memory for a second, because I had never heard of Mother Love Bone before. So I have the opportunity to go back and kind of learn about him. But what would you like us to know about your friend?
Oh, I mean, he was a genius, lyrically and musically brilliant beyond words, and the kindest, sweetest human being I'd ever met in the rock and roll business. Everyone respected him. Everyone loved him. He just was a magical, beautiful soul. And I mean, everybody was rooting for him. I mean, the whole world in the Seattle music scene, and I say that the whole world in the Seattle music scene was rooting for him. Everyone wanted to see Mother Love Bone just take over because they knew how talented he was. And he had the respect of every artist. And it was just such a sad day when he lost that battle. And I think it was sad, just for the world musically, because nobody really got to see. So yeah, he would stand on stage and say, "Can you see me in the balcony?" And there's no balcony. Like, it's like he just was that person. Like the whole world was his stage, and he wanted it. And that was really what the saddest thing was, is that this really beautiful, talented human being never had the chance to show the world how great he was.
That's a really good line. I'm going to start using that. I wanted to ask you your favorite late night touring 4, 5, 6, 7 a.m., 8 a.m. great, wonderful, beautiful hang story. It's like, oh my God, it was just this one beautiful, fun night that just went on forever. And God, I love that night.
I mean, we've had a few of those. They've happened more with this band with Adam, Island, Brian, and BJ than they really ever happened to Candlebox. Because we're really, really close friends. I mean, there's been moments where, we look at the clock and like, oh my God, it's 5 a.m. We gotta go to bed, and then we ended up drinking another bottle of wine and going to bed at 6 a.m. It happens. And they're conversations, it's just getting to know more about one another and sharing those kind of stories and emotions and, and things that only happen after 2 or 3 bottles of wine, where you kind of start telling one another how you really feel about life and the experiences and the changes and growth that you've gone through or what you're experiencing maybe at home. And, those are, I don't even know if I could tell you any of the stories because you wake up the next day, what the hell were we talking about last night? But, but they happen and they're really fun. And they're good for bonding, they're good for your friendship and your relationships. I mean, it doesn't happen enough. I will tell you that much. But I mean, at this day and age, when 54 years old, things start to hurt when you wake up, only after 5 or 6 hours worth of sleep. But maybe it'll happen a lot on this tour coming up this summer because I'll be out with Jerry and Gavin and I know, even though Jerry doesn't drink, there'll be moments I'm hoping that we can actually hang out and maybe chill 2 or 3 in the morning and catch up.
Yeah. Yeah, do that. I want to imagine that in my mind. That sounds beautiful. So I want to talk about Kevin Martin and the High Watts. To this day, one of my favorite bands. Some days out of nowhere, I just start singing thoughtless innuendos to myself. Or if we could. You formed High Watts because it wasn't the typical Candlebox feel for you. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, and I was also, we had left Maverick. We were in a lawsuit with Maverick, so I couldn't do anything under the name Candlebox.
Gotcha.
So I did this side project and I signed to this label called Gold Circle, in the hopes that I'd have a continued recording career. And then that label folded, even before the record came out. So I sat on this album and decided to put it out on my own on Tympanic Records. And, I got a deal with Missy Colazzo, out of, MRI, Music, and she let me put the record out and the rest is history.
It's just one of my favorite albums of all time,
Thank
to
you.
be perfectly honest about it. Were you going through something or really feeling something? Like there feels like this
Oh yeah.
energetic euphoria of like dreaming, kind of.
Yeah.
Is kind of how I think of If We Could. I was just like, it's inspiring when you're feeling uninspired. And the whole
Yeah.
album is just this. I feel like the whole album is like reaching for something more. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I had just gotten divorced. I was in a lawsuit with Maverick Records. I was trying to find, a place in the world of rock and roll for me, that wasn't Candlebox. It just tons of emotions and tons of heartbreak and tons of change. And, and I really was very hungry for a different type of music, from myself. Candlebox had gotten to a point where I felt, a bit stagnant. I felt like Pete's writing was becoming a little bit, formulaic. Barty wasn't being, inspired to write. We had Dave Cruzen on drums, who was really inspiring me to change up my songwriting style. That's where Stones Throw Away and Sometimes came from, us working with Dave, because I wrote those songs with him. I didn't write them with Pete and Barty. And that's what I was looking for myself with the, what is that, Possibility Being album, was that world for me, and in hopes that it would expand, my musical career if Candlebox ever got back together. And which is why now I do so much more writing with Candlebox than I ever did before musically, because like the first album, I only wrote the lyrics and the melodies and a couple of the guitar parts. I didn't write any of the songs. On Lucy, I wrote like 2 songs. Happy Pills, I wrote 6 or 7. And then it was Possibility Being was all mine. So it was a great place for me to be as a songwriter. And the fact that I was able to write all those songs, just by myself, it was you know, was very uh, awakening for me, and made me feel really responsible, if that's the right word I'm looking for.
A responsible musician.
Yeah.
That's funny. Good. Okay, so let's get to, yeah, just last one. I want to talk about the charity that I saw you perform with last. So talk about that charity. I know you're really passionate about it and dedicated to working with them in the future. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Riptide Society. Yeah, I started it with my buddy Todd, and it's just about, helping these youth, young adults, and in the foster care system that are just trying to find some footing, trying to find a place in the world. And it can be very difficult at times, bouncing around foster care homes and trying to find somebody that gives a shit about you. And we want them to know that we give a shit, and we want to help them find the schooling, the funding for school they need, the funding for jobs they need, whatever they need to better themselves and to help them in their future. And so there's no aging out of it. As long as you continue to be dedicated to the foster care system, we will continue to help you. So if you're in your 30s or your 40s and you grew up in the foster care system and you're a part of helping us with that, you continue to get funding and help with that. But really, it's just about the youth, these young at-risk youth and young adults that are trying to, from the age of 2 to 18, to find somebody that gives a shit, and we do.
I love that. And for the rest of the year, you have a huge tour coming up. I'm very excited about that. Do you have any other one-offs planned?
I have one in Ohio, acoustically, and then I have the charity, which I think this year is November 8th and 9th. But that's it.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. We'll end it here. You're going away, you're retiring, so you have to have some famous last words. It's not up to me, it's you. You're the one retiring.
It's a famous last words. Yeah, I don't know any of those. I think it's just really, I'm at a place where I'm feeling very secure in who I am, and who I've become, and my place in this planet. And I want that for everybody. It's a good place to be. It's a good feeling to have, and it's a good emotion to have. And I'm very lucky. And thanks for listening. Thanks for taking the time to allow Candlebox to be in your ears. That's not everybody likes us, but those of you who do, I appreciate each and every one of you.